Hello and welcome to this recorded version of the Chancery Lane Project's Facilitators training. My name's Matilda and I'm a Project Associate with the Chancery Lane Project. If you have any questions after watching this video, please do get in contact with me at matilda@chancerylaneproject.org. First things first, here are some resources that are available to support facilitators. This includes the Facilitators page on our new events website. I'll just show you that quickly because, as you'll see, it's at events.chancerylaneproject.org/facilitators-page. And you'll be able to download the following resources for more information. That's the slides that I'm using today, as well as the Facilitators Handbook and the equivalents for integration. You can also use this page to fill out the form to register your interest in becoming a facilitator. And please do pause the recording and do this now if you haven't already. So as I've just mentioned, the initial steps are to get involved, and that's our main website there, chancerylaneproject.org/get-involved, and also make sure you're signed up to be a facilitator. So what are the anticipated expectations of you as a facilitator? Well, in this period now, before the hack, that's for most of October and the first week of November, this will involve exactly what you're doing now, some light touch engagement approximately once a week of orientation and or community building. Feel free to drop into our live facilitators training sessions as well if you can, or indeed our lunchtime drop-in sessions on Tuesday and Thursday lunchtimes at 1 PM London time, all of which are advertised on Slack if you join that. Then the main event is one full day over the 5th and 6th of November, and that's going to be at 12 PM on the 5th of November London time to 1 PM on the 6th, and it's going to pass around the world. So from EMEA to the Americas to Asia Pacific and back round to EMEA. And after the hack, importantly, although the main focus is this one full day during London Pro Bono Week, after the hack, you as a facilitator will need to animate the drafting process in the next 3 weeks. So this session will introduce the facilitator's role, set out TCLP's objectives, set out the IT requirements, introduce the Big Hack 2020, and walk you through the processes that you will facilitate. The facilitator's role really isn't one of an expert or consultant. It's to guide participants through the event and make it come alive and animate them to the process. Legal expertise is a bonus, but it's not required. The role is really to create a safe, fun, collaborative and non-judgmental environment for participants. And indeed, you'll need to coordinate live and offline sessions, which you can pick and choose to suit your group. So the Chancery Lane Project's goals are to shift the dial and make climate-conscious drafting that seems ambitious now the norm as quickly as possible, and to make consideration of climate risk mainstream so that it is no longer thought of as a discrete environmental issue. Now, this is really important because what we ask is that you as a facilitator keep these goals really at the forefront of the minds of the participants in all the activities during the Big Hack. The next slide, as you can see, is the IT requirements for working with the Chancery Lane Project. We understand that this can be a problem for law firms with certain firewall issues, and so it's best to address these as soon as possible and bring to the attention of all the participants that they will need to be able to access these platforms in order to work with us. So they include Zoom as a virtual meeting space, Slack, that's our collaborative hub. We use it instead of email. So you can communicate with your team and all our events are coordinated through Slack. We also use Airtable and Google Docs, and I won't say too much about them now because I will go on to show you how we use them in the rest of this presentation. But that's just to flag the use of those 4 platforms at an early stage. And of course, our events website, which I've already shown you but this is a useful resource if you can see the tube stop animation, as we fondly refer to it, on the right of the screen here. From 1 to 7 is really walks you through the several stages of our process. So right from the idea generation early stage through to drafting and peer review at the end. And our website has how-to guides and YouTube videos accompanying all these stages. So it's a really comprehensive way to present the information there to you. So some more about the Big Hack 2020. Events will be entirely online. Activities will occur across many jurisdictions, as I've mentioned briefly already, and they'll be spread over the course of 4 months, but with a focus on live events during Pro Bono Week. That's the 5th and the 6th of November 2020. So get those dates in your diary now. We are currently inviting proposals for themes and volunteers to facilitate them. And the event itself will combine working together in online sessions with working solo or in small groups offline. And so before we get started with the processes of the event itself, something that's really important for both you as a facilitator and indeed your participants is that a certain familiarization with TCLP's existing content is really a prerequisite, in the sense that it not only gives you a great starting point in terms of it will give you an idea of what some raw ideas and origin stories look like, but also because it will avoid you having the frustrating experience of having duplicated material that has already been drafted. So we've summarised here 4 ways to get to know our existing material, and the arrow going down, it sort of increases in detail. So to go through these now, the first is a visual clause timeline. Thank you to Phoebe Roberts from Ellison who designed this for us. And this is a really nice visual way of looking at the clauses as they are in the contractual phases. So right the way through from the pre-contract phase, to breach and dispute resolution, and then broken into further categories, as you can see. So that's a really nice way to get an overview and to hone in on ones that might be of particular interest to you from a very early stage. We also have some summaries of our courses available on an Airtable gallery. Now we use Airtable galleries a fair bit, so it's worth me just illustrating how they work now. So as you can see, this is a nice display of all our clauses that have been summarised. You can click on a clause to get a bigger view. You see here we have the title, the summary, the practice area. And what's great about Airtable is you can also filter the views. So say you want to look at a particular practice area, you can go practice area here, you can write commercial, and then it filters the view so that you're only seeing the clauses that have been tagged for the commercial practice area. So again, this is great if you are working as a facilitator of a particular theme and you want to zone in on the particular relevant clauses for you and your participants. This is a great way to do so. And in that vein, we also have the full clauses that are filterable and searchable on an Airtable gallery here. And as I said before, please don't worry that you can't click on the links in this recording, because you can download the slides from our facilitators page where all the links will be available to you. And finally, you can read our full drafting and accompanying origin stories in our publications, the latest of which is the Climate Contract Playbook Edition 3, and also the Glossary Edition 2, which has our defined terms, which will be particularly handy when you and participants get to the drafting stage. So on to our first module, which is idea generation. So the principles of this module is really time, pressure and post-it notes, low tech and low pressure, reiterate quantity, not quality. It's as much of an icebreaker exercise as it is an important first step in the drafting journey. So your main role in this module is to create a safe space where participants feel they can air their ideas without criticism. This is often the part that participants feel least comfortable with, and feels most foreign to their daily work, so remind them of these key principles. We want uncooked ideas and lots of them, and don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You may have to put aside your legal training for that one. Try and avoid the temptation to evaluate or challenge your ideas right now. There will be time for that later on. And importantly, that last bullet point there, focus on a climate issue and corresponding solution. If possible, one they feel able to address with their own drafting knowledge and expertise. This is to make sure at the outset that the task is approached from the right perspective. So more about how this module works. You can tell participants that you're going to put 1 minute or 2 minutes on the clock and set a timer. You can gamify this and add a bit of fun by, for example, counting down 30 seconds left and make sure your timer goes off at the end. You can then perhaps give participants a fuller 5 minutes to pick their favourite ideas and develop them a bit further into full sentences that others can understand, and ask them to submit them on this raw ideas submission form, which is again available on our events website. After allowing about 5 minutes or so to do that, the next stage is to reveal the ideas that have been produced in the raw ideas gallery. And we find that this can be a really exciting moment in the process, because participants can kind of see that magic of seeing 10 or 20 ideas go up that are the product of 5 minutes work, see their ideas amongst others, get excited about the kind of ideas that they can see being posted. The idea generation stage is really key to relieving anxieties about volunteering ideas, and it feels exciting to see the impressive product of less than 10 minutes work. Share your screen to show them how to filter by tag, and then give them a few minutes to look at other ideas on the wall. Ask if anyone would like to spend 1 minute explaining their idea in more detail and facilitate a few minutes of brief discussion around it. Do any of the ideas overlap and complement each other? Could they be merged or help one another? So at that stage, you'll have completed the idea generation module, and you're ready to move on to origin stories. You can complete this as a separate session, or you can run the two modules together depending on what's most convenient for your group. In order to do this, you can choose an idea from the wall to take forwards into the next module. It might be that this one has leapt out during discussion as something that the rest of the group feel excited about, or simply an idea whose author is willing for it to be used as a guinea pig. You could ask participants to vote in the chat function for the idea they'd most like to develop as part of the next module. And so here is our second module, which is origin story generation. So a note for facilitators here, which is to keep in mind that this module aims to take a blue sky idea and anchor it to real-world application. We want participants to be thinking about the practicalities of ideas and to make sure their idea doesn't overlap with existing TCLP work or wider environmental and legal initiatives. Think about whether the idea is most appropriately presented as one origin story or needs to be split into several to make it more focused. Be prepared to raise this for discussion if needed. And the principles of this module, well, origin stories are inspired by the origin stories of superheroes. They illustrate the great power of picking up the pen and the great responsibility that lawyers have to do this in the fight against climate change. Another reason that we use origin stories is that stories help us engage others for impact. Origin stories provide the context and background of drafting and introduce the final clause or law, encouraging thoroughly researched and considered final content. So how does it work? Well, you can check out other ideas and origin stories in the origin story gallery. It can help give you an idea of what they look like. And then you can turn your ideas into origin stories by populating the origin story template, which is a Google Doc. So as you can see, if you follow the template, it will encourage participants to think about the appropriate practice areas and sectors and focus them on a climate issue and a corresponding solution that their drafting aims to achieve. We'll also encourage participants to research the legal and environmental context from the outset and imagine what impact it has in the real world, as well as consider the stakeholders and the application of their drafting. So the purpose of this third module, origin story development, is to improve quality by ensuring that every origin story owner has access to wider support to develop and finesse their ideas. Your role is to convene a community of people, ideally who have some experience in the practice areas being developed to offer this. Not all the work can be done in the live session, but do make sure the authors feel they have enough background information and support to ask for help where they need it, and to progress confidently to drafting. In this respect, you can see this module like a walk-in clinic. There is also the potential to refer authors to the TCLP team and Slack community to seek further expertise if required to develop their origin story before submission. So the principles of this module are really the magic of lawyers working collaboratively and diversity of perspective strengthening ideas. So if we have a look at this origin story development template, you will see that it much resembles the template that we used before in the first two columns, and then it's got a third column for participants to insert comments for feedback. So they can do this by switching from editing mode to suggesting mode. And you will see anonymous comment here. And the great thing about Google Docs is all of your group can enter into this document at once. And again, after a relatively short window, after a 10-minute or 15-minute brainstorming session, the author of this origin story will have a great lot of notes and feedback to go away and think about before they get onto the drafting process. And participants assimilate feedback and comments after the live session. Which brings us on to origin story submission, which again is done via our website. And so there is an Airtable form here, the fields of which mirror the boxes that you saw in the Google Doc template. Which brings us on to the fourth module, drafting. This really needs no introduction to lawyers, and most of the time we find participants will want to do this offline or individually. However, you can use live sessions to monitor progress, or again, to run a sort of walk-in clinic that people can come to with questions, and you can help link them up to people who can help them. We have a drafting template, which is a Google Doc, and drafting guidelines, which include our house style sheet. You can collaborate on drafting live by using comments function in Google Docs. And finally, you submit your drafting form on our events website as an attachment. And the final module of the TCLP content creation process is peer review. Now you can advertise this opportunity to your group and indeed volunteer if you want using, you guessed it, another form on our events website. And please do pat yourself on the back and celebrate your achievement at this stage. So just a reminder here, where are we? Well, the two main virtual forums for the Big Hack 2020 and you as a facilitator will be our events website at events.chancerylaneproject.org and Slack, which is an online community where you can both communicate with your team and access the wider community for expertise on particular topics. You can take the first step by visiting this link here and signing up to Get Involved, which will generate an invitation link to join Slack if you haven't already. If you do have any further questions or comments, please do not hesitate to get in touch with any of the team, as you can see here, either Ben, Jenny, or myself at Matilda@chancerylaneproject.org. Thank you so much for your time and for listening.